Have you ever gotten pregnant for your love rival? They called me his stand-in. Now I'm carrying his child while whimpering ah, and begging him to stop on his bed. But that's later. Part 1. Let me start where it actually began. The day the white moonlight came home, and the stand-in was expected to disappear quietly back into the wings. I heard him before I saw him. Not his voice, his silence. The kind that changes the air in a room, that makes waiters straighten their spines and Noel's smile go soft and stupid at the edges. Like a man remembering something he'd buried on purpose. He's early, Noel murmured, checking his watch like it might argue with him. I didn't need to ask who he was. There was only ever one he in this house. I stood at the top of the staircase in the clothes Noel had picked out for me. Soft gray, expensive, the kind of fabric that whispered cared for to anyone who didn't look too closely at my face. I smoothed my hands down my sleeves and told myself, the way I always did, that this was just another dinner, another performance. I was good at performances by now. Then the door opened, and I stopped being able to tell myself anything at all. Finn Averlane walked in quietly, the way he seemed to do everything. No announcement, no weight to his footsteps, just suddenly there in the doorway like he'd always been part of the room's furniture. He was lean, fine-boned in a way that still somehow read as composed rather than fragile, moved like someone who'd never once had to hurry for anything in his life. Rain clung to his dark hair, dampened the collar of a coat that sat on him with the kind of effortless elegance money couldn't quite explain on its own. Nothing about him should have made the room go quiet, and yet it did. Maybe it was his eyes, sharp, unreadable, the kind that seemed to already know the ending of whatever conversation was about to happen. Or maybe it was just Noel, straightening like a man in the presence of something sacred, and the rest of us following his lead without meaning to. His eyes found Noel first, warm, relieved, home. Then they found me, and went cold so fast I actually felt it like a window thrown open in winter. He didn't know me, not really, but something in his face shifted, some private calculation running behind his eyes, like he was matching my face against a name he'd already heard whispered somewhere. Noel's companion, the one he keeps. I'd caught the edges of that gossip myself, secondhand, the way you catch your own reflection in a shop window you weren't looking for. Apparently it traveled both directions. But it was more than that. He looked at me a beat too long, jaw tightening like he'd bitten down on something he didn't expect the taste of. Like there was something about my face itself that unsettled him, some resemblance he couldn't place and didn't want to. Finn. Noel stepped between us, easy and diplomatic, the way he always did when he sensed a storm gathering that he didn't want to name out loud. This is Seal. His hand found Finn's shoulder, just slightly redirecting him. The way you'd steer someone away from a ledge without ever mentioning there was one. If Finn had asked why Seal's face made him pause, I don't think Noel would have answered. I don't think he ever planned to. Finn's gaze dragged over me. The soft gray shirt, the sleeves too fine for someone like me, the way I stood a half step behind Noel like I belonged there, like I'd been placed there. Something in his expression settled, fast and final, the way a door settles into its frame. Then, before I could even brace for whatever came next, his whole demeanor shifted, shoulders loosening, mouth curving into something easy and warm, as the rest of the room called out his name. Finn! Marcus was already up from the sofa, pulling him into a one-armed hug. Priya waved a wine glass at him from across the room. Look who finally remembered we exist. Barely survived without you lot, Finn said, and he sounded like he meant it. Grinning loose, nothing like the man who'd looked at me 2 seconds ago like I was something unpleasant tracked in on someone's shoe. He crossed the room, shook hands, laughed at something Marcus said, kissed Priya's cheek. Warm, easy, likable. Nobody else seemed to notice the version of him I'd just met. Dinner was a slow bleed, and no one at the table seemed to feel it but me. Finn was charming through the soup course, telling some story about a botched deal overseas that had Marcus wheezing with laughter, refilling Priya's glass before she even asked. He caught my eye exactly once, and something in his expression flattened for half a second before he turned back to the table, smooth as water closing over a stone. Then, between one story and the next, without even changing his tone. You know, Seal, that shirt suits you. Noel always did have good taste in what he dresses up. He said it lightly, smiling, like a compliment offered in passing. To anyone else at that table, it would have sounded like nothing. A host being generous, maybe even kind. Only I heard the blade under it. Thank you, I said carefully. Of course. He turned back to Priya before I'd even finished the word, like the compliment had never mattered enough to wait for a response. Anyway, Priya, you were saying. Noel didn't notice. Marcus didn't notice. Why would they? It had sounded like nothing, a passing compliment at a dinner table. Nobody heard the way he'd said what he dresses up like I was something worn rather than someone present. By the third course, I'd mostly stopped eating. My hands sat folded in my lap, nails pressing little crescents into my palms, and I focused very hard on breathing normally, on being the kind of quiet that didn't invite more. You're not eating, Finn observed, still smiling, still pleasant enough that Priya glanced over and smiled too, thinking he was just being a good host. Everything all right, Seal? I'm not very hungry. No, I imagine not, he said, tilting his head, voice light as anything, eyes anything but. Must be exhausting, keeping track of which version of gratitude to perform, depending on who's watching. The table didn't go quiet. Marcus laughed at something Priya said. Noel refilled his glass. Nobody heard it but me. The exact shape of the insult, wrapped so carefully in a dinner party tone that it slid past everyone except the person it was aimed at. I could have said something, but pride is a strange, stupid thing, and mine had decided a long time ago that I would rather let a cruel man believe a lie about me than beg an entire table of near strangers to see the truth. So I said nothing and smiled, the way I'd trained myself to smile through worse. Finn's mouth curved, just slightly, just for me. Like I'd confirmed something he'd already decided was true before he ever walked through that door. Then he turned back to the table, warm again, easy again, already laughing at something Marcus said, and it was like the last 30 seconds had happened in a different room that only I'd been standing in. It wasn't the first time someone at this table had made me feel like a guest who'd wandered in from the wrong party. Noel's friends were always polite to me, careful even, but politeness has a temperature, and theirs was always a few degrees short of warm. I'd learned the pattern by now. The pause before anyone said my name, the way conversations about school or holidays or families quietly closed themselves before I could be included in them. Nobody said the word sugar baby out loud. They didn't have to. It sat in the room anyway, in every gap where an invitation should have been. I excused myself before dessert. I told myself it was because I was tired. It wasn't. I made it to the hallway before my eyes went hot, and I stood there in the dark with my back against the wall, breathing through my nose, hating how much one man's contempt could take out of me when I'd survived worse than this: hunger, cold apartments, a mother's hospital bills that never stopped coming, and none of it had ever made my chest hurt like this. I didn't hear him follow me. I only felt the air shift, and then his voice, low, right behind me. You have a talent for looking wounded, he said. Convenient. I turned. He was closer than I expected. Rain-damp coat discarded somewhere, sleeves pushed up, standing in the low light of the hallway like he had every right to corner me in a house that wasn't even his. What do you want, Finn? I want to know, he said, stepping closer. And I hated that my back found the wall again, hated that my breath caught, hated that some traitorous part of me noticed how close his mouth was to mine. What it is about you, what Noel sees. Because from where I'm standing, all I see is someone who found a rich, lonely man and made himself indispensable. You don't know anything about me. I know what people say. His voice dropped lower. I know exactly what kind of arrangement lets a poor college kid live in a house like this. You don't have to spell it out for me. Then you know wrong, I snapped, before I could stop myself, before pride swallowed the words back down where they belonged. Something flickered in his eyes, not softening. Not yet, but a hairline crack in the certainty, there and gone so fast I almost thought I'd imagined it. Prove it, he said quietly, and God help me, for one unbearable second, standing close enough to feel the heat of him, dizzy on nothing but his anger and his nearness. I almost wanted to. I didn't answer. I pushed past him instead, shoulder brushing his, and didn't look back even when I heard him say my name. Just once, low, like it cost him something to say it at all. I didn't know yet that this was only the beginning. That the man who looked at me like I was something scraped off his shoe would, before this year was over, be the reason my whole world rearranged itself around a single positive test and a love I never asked for and couldn't stop even if I tried. I only knew, standing alone in that dark hallway with my heart slamming and my eyes wet, that I hated him. And that hating him had never once, not for a single second, felt anything like being unaffected. Don't forget to share, and send this to your friends. Oh wait, sorry. Your family doesn't know you're into boys' love yet, do they?